The observation deck of the Meridian Dawn offered an unobstructed view of the Sagittarius Arm, where distant stars flickered like dying embers against the cosmic void. Maya stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her reflection ghosting across the reinforced transparency as she studied the emptiness beyond. Somewhere in that darkness, the convergence fleets were gathering, an armada so vast it would blot out entire constellations. "They're afraid of us," William said, approaching from behind. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous space, each impact a reminder of how alone they were on this ship, this outpost at the edge of human territory. Maya didn't turn. Fear is a rational response to the unknown. We represent an impossibility in their carefully ordered universe. William moved to stand beside her, his weathered face reflecting decades of military service. The scar along his jawline, a memento from the Battle of Kepler 442, caught the starlight, making it seem to glow. An impossibility. We're just two species who decided to work together. Exactly. Maya finally looked at him, her dark eyes intense with the weight of understanding. In 17,000 years of recorded galactic history, no two sentient species has ever formed a lasting alliance. Cooperation, yes. Trade agreements, certainly. But true partnership. It violates every sociological model the Convergence has built their entire civilization upon. The Convergence, a coalition of 8 alien races who had dominated the galaxy for millennia, operated on a fundamental principle. Sentient species were inherently competitive, destined to either conquer or be conquered. Their entire political structure depended on this truth. The strongest dominated, the weakest served, and everyone understood their place in the hierarchy. Then humanity had emerged from Earth, and everything changed. William pulled up a holographic display, his fingers dancing through the air as he manipulated data streams. "Our latest intelligence suggests they've mobilized forces from the outer dominions. That's unprecedented. They're pulling ships from peacekeeping duties, border patrols, even their sacred temple worlds." "Because we broke their universe," Maya said softly. The Humans-Yntharian alliance had begun almost by accident. 15 years ago, a human exploration vessel had encountered a Yntharian colony ship that had suffered catastrophic engine failure. Standard protocol for any convergent species would have been to harvest what they could and leave the survivors to their fate. After all, weakness invited exploitation. But the humans had helped. They'd shared resources, repaired the Yntharian ship, and asked for nothing in return. The Yntharians, a silicon-based species from the Andromeda sector, had been bewildered. They'd spent weeks analyzing human behavior, searching for the hidden motive, the inevitable betrayal. When none came, something unprecedented happened. They'd offered friendship. That simple act of compassion had cascading effects throughout the galaxy. Within 5 years, the alliance had grown from 2 species to 7. The Vorlani, masters of quantum physics, joined after humans had helped evacuate their homeworld from a dying star. The Kresh, fierce warriors, pledged allegiance after witnessing human soldiers sacrifice themselves to protect Kresh civilians during a pirate raid. Each new species that joined the alliance represented another crack in the Convergence's philosophical foundation. If cooperation was possible, if different species could work together as equals rather than as masters and subjects, then the entire galactic order was built on a lie. "They can't let us exist," William said, closing the holographic display. "Not because we're a military threat, not yet anyway, but because we're an ideological one." Maya nodded. The Convergence Primarch's last transmission made that clear. An aberration must be corrected before it metastasizes. They see the alliance as a disease, William, and they intend to cure it with fire. The tactical situation was grim. The alliance controlled 47 systems, with a combined fleet of roughly 8,000 ships. Intelligence suggested the Convergence was assembling a force of over 50,000 vessels for their crusade. The math was simple and brutal. the Alliance would be obliterated. Our people are evacuating the outer colonies, William reported, his voice carefully neutral. But we don't have enough transport capacity. Millions will be left behind when the convergence arrives. No, Maya's voice was sharp, decisive. We don't abandon anyone. That's the whole point of what we're building. Maya, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, she whirled to face him, and William saw something fierce burning in her eyes. The moment we start making those calculations, the moment we decide some lives are worth less than others, we become exactly what the convergence says we are. We prove their point. William was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a sad, weary expression that made him look every one of his 63 years. You're right. Of course you're right. So what's the plan? Maya pulled up her own holographic interface, this one displaying a three-dimensional map of the local galactic sector. Red markers indicated convergence fleet positions. Blue markers showed Alliance forces. And at the center, a single green marker pulsed, the Meridian Dawn itself. The convergence is coming to erase us, Maya said, but they're operating on outdated assumptions. They think we'll fight like they do, species by species, each one looking out for their own interests first. She manipulated the display and the blue markers began to shift, forming a pattern that made William's eyes widen. Maya, that's insane. It's necessary. Her fingers continued their dance, and more data appeared. Supply routes, communication protocols, energy signatures. The Xantharians have been working on a modification to their quantum entanglement communicators. With human-computer processing speeds and Vorlani theoretical frameworks, we can create a real-time tactical network connecting every ship in the Alliance fleet. William studied the data, his military mind already seeing the implications. A true hive-mind combat system. Every ship would know the position and status of every other ship instantaneously. No communication lag, no misunderstandings. More than that, Maya said, her excitement building. The Kresh have developed predictive combat algorithms. The Thorians can create gravitic distortions that will mask our actual fleet positions. And humans, she smiled. We bring creativity, unpredictability, the willingness to try things no sane civilization would consider. The convergence will be facing an enemy that thinks and acts as one, William said slowly, but with the tactical flexibility of individual initiative. Exactly. We turn our greatest advantage, our ability to cooperate, into a weapon they can't counter. Over the following weeks, the Alliance transformed itself. Every species contributed their unique strengths to the collective effort. Xantharian engineers worked alongside human technicians, their silicon-based cognition perfectly complementing human intuitive problem-solving. Vorlani scientists collaborated with Kresh warriors, theoretical physics meeting practical combat experience. Maya coordinated it all from the Meridian Dawn, which had become the nerve center of the Alliance. She slept 3 hours a night, consumed meals while reviewing tactical simulations, and pushed herself to the edge of exhaustion. William watched her with growing concern, but he understood the weight she carried. The Alliance had no single leader. It was a true coalition of equals, but Maya had become its heart, the person who held everything together through sheer force of will. The convergence arrived on schedule, their massive fleet emerging from hyperspace in a display meant to inspire awe and terror. 53,000 warships, arranged in perfect geometric formation, representing the combined might of 8 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Admiral Korthvin, the Convergence fleet commander, expected the Alliance forces to scatter or surrender. What he saw instead made his primary sensory organs dilate in confusion. The Alliance fleet, every single ship, moved in perfect synchronization. Not the rigid formation flying of the Convergence, but something more like a school of fish or a flock of birds, each vessel maintaining optimal positioning relative to all others while retaining individual freedom of movement. Impossible, Korthvin muttered in his native tongue. They can't coordinate like that. The communication lag alone. His tactical officer interrupted. Admiral, they're not communicating, at least not through conventional channels. There's no electromagnetic traffic, no quantum pulse transmissions. It's as if they all simply know where the others are. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. The Convergence fleet, despite its numerical superiority, found itself constantly out of position. Alliance ships would concentrate fire on a target, then disperse before the Convergence could respond. Kresh warships would charge into seemingly suicidal positions, only to have Thorian gravity wells shift space itself, pulling Convergence vessels into devastating crossfires from human destroyers. It was like fighting smoke. Every time the Convergence tried to bring their superior numbers to bear, the Alliance simply wasn't where they expected. And when the Alliance counterattacked, they struck with surgical precision, each species' strengths perfectly complementing the others. On the Meridian Dawn, Maya watched the battle unfold with William at her side. The neural interface she wore allowed her to perceive the tactical network, to feel the ebb and flow of the engagement as if it were her own heartbeat. "We're losing ships," William reported, though Maya already knew. She could feel each loss like a physical blow: a Vorlani cruiser destroyed, a human frigate crippled, a Zintharian carrier venting atmosphere. "But we're winning," Maya whispered. She was right. Despite their losses, the Alliance was systematically dismantling the Convergence fleet, not through superior firepower or technology, but through something the Convergence couldn't comprehend: genuine cooperation elevated to an art form. 6 hours into the battle, Admiral Korthvin made a decision that shocked his subordinates. He ordered a retreat. The Convergence had never retreated, not in 17,000 years of recorded history, but Korthvin understood what his superiors back on the Convergence homeworlds would take months to accept. They had lost before the battle even began. The Alliance hadn't just defeated them militarily, they'd proven that cooperation was stronger than domination. As the Convergence fleet limped away into hyperspace, leaving behind nearly 20,000 destroyed vessels, Maya finally allowed herself to collapse into her command chair. The neural interface disconnected, and suddenly she was just herself again, exhausted and human and very, very small. William placed a hand on her shoulder. "We did it." "No," Maya said, looking up at him with tears streaming down her face. "They did it. Every species in the Alliance, every individual who chose to trust someone different from themselves. We just showed them it was possible." In the days that followed, the Convergence would fracture. Species that had been held together by fear and domination began to question the system. Some would seek to join the Alliance. Others would forge their own paths. The galaxy would never be the same. And Maya, standing once again at the observation deck of the Meridian Dawn, watched the stars and understood a fundamental truth. They had come to erase the Alliance because it scared them. But fear was just the beginning. What truly terrified the Convergence, what would ultimately transform the entire galaxy, was hope. Hope that there was another way. Hope that cooperation was possible. Hope that the future could be different from the past. The Alliance had survived not because they were stronger, but because they dared to believe in something the Convergence had forgotten millennia ago. That together, they were greater than the sum of their parts. And that, more than any weapon or technology, was what had truly scared the galaxy.